Great day, everybody. We are live. Welcome to another incredible episode of the Gale Show. I'm Matthew Britt, coming at you from about an hour south of Ottawa, Ontario, in the formerly great country of Canada. Very happy to be here. Jim is in the field today, so I brought in a guest co-host with me, Graham Towerton. Great to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for assisting us today.
Thanks, Matthew. Coming at you from Michigan in the still great country of the United States of America.
And Graham's one of the designers on our team. Why don't you just quickly share a little bit about yourself and what you do with Food Forest Abundance, Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. So I've been practicing permaculture in my life about 35 years, first in Australia with my parents' family farm. Would read about permaculture in Back to Earth magazines and always wondered if it would turn into anything really special. Wasn't sure if it would ever be a job or a career path for me. Because we just read about it in magazines and, hope that people would practice it on their farms like my parents did, etc. So I went and got myself a chemical engineering degree and did 34 years of chemical engineering and just recently retired from that last year in July so that I could go full-time into doing permaculture for the rest of my life. And as part of that, I am one of the 2 global design team leaders for Food Forest Abundance. So my team of people, very proud to represent today, cover all of Canada, the northwest section of the United States and Midwest, a little bit of Texas and Florida, all of Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific, the Middle East, and Northern Africa. So with that, we've got a lot of territory, and my colleague Eleanor Tadini covers all of the rest of the world. So between the two of us, we have 40 designers that are on our teams. And we're really, really excited about what's happening in Food Forest Abundance with all the latest activity that we have. We're conducting strategy session calls across the globe to meet with people, learn where they're at on their permaculture journey, then help them on their next steps. And that's turning into a lot of really exciting work for us.
Outstanding. Well, Graham, man, it's so awesome to have you on the Food Forest Abundance team and bring your wealth of knowledge both to all the customers and new stewards that we have joining us, but also today to the show. Having 30 plus years of experience in the permaculture space is a rare thing at this point, but the couple that we're going to be speaking with, I think combined between the two of you guys are significant amount of education and knowledge and background. So I thought you'd be an excellent addition to this conversation as we bring on Germaine and Pete Staley from Permagenics and Champions of Permaculture, joining us from the UK. Welcome to the Gale Show.
Hiya, thanks very much for inviting us.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, really, really pleased to be on the show. And great to Graham. What a wealth of knowledge and experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're extremely grateful you were able to join us today. And first, before we go too far, why don't you just tell our audience, you can each take a few minutes and give everybody a little bit of your background and how we ended up here today. We'd love to learn a little bit about you.
You go first.
Yeah, okay. So, I've always been a little bit different. So I was always interested in things that are a little bit sort of like alternative as I was growing up. And 2008, that financial crash, our family, the two of us, we just realized that there has to be a better way of living. And actually homeschooling was what got us onto our journey of permaculture, because obviously we were missioning towards the good life type of existence, trying to remove the amount of parasites between us and our resources. As you know, there's so many of them between you and your resources that extract a little bit for themselves before you get to it. So we try to remove that and came across permaculture. And I have to say, it's the thing that's kind of galvanized everything we do ever since we learned about it. And 2008 until now. So it's been quite an interesting journey. We went and lived off grid. We lived van life, 2 adults, 3 kids, 2 dogs.
Lived in communities.
built communities, designed, consulted, and yeah, we wanted to find out how to live with as little as possible so that should something major happen, we wouldn't have the fear of losing everything. So that's how we sold everything and did van life for a few years. And I trained as a sustainability designer through Gaia Education. And I did that because when we were setting up communities, we realized there was a massive social component to everything we do in life. So I went and learned all those elements, and then I'll let Pete tell you what he went and learned. So yeah.
I mean, I think my story is a little bit different. I was very conventional. I'm ex-military. I did my 22 years in the British Royal Navy, but I joined the Navy thinking I'd see the world and I'd get a decent trade. But prior to joining the Navy, I actually did a work experience as a greenkeeper on a golf course, and I loved it. I really loved it. I love working outside. I love working with my hands, and I love getting my hands dirty. I just found that sort of living really fun. And from that sort of time, I was always interested in the garden. You go to the dentist, I'd pick up the gardening magazine rather than the car, the fast car magazine. I'd be reading about farming. I had no background in it at all, no reason to go that direction, but I just had an affinity with it. So although I'm an engineer by trade, I've got a degree in engineering, but I was always researching and studying. I didn't realize it, but I was actually studying permaculture. And then I don't know what the year was, but some years later, during the awakening time that we actually had, Germaine said, "Oh, have you seen this?" And it was a Geoff Lawton video. And I went, "Oh, right, that's interesting." And then I watched one, and then I watched two, and then I watched a million of them. And I then effectively studied permaculture inside out without actually doing a PDC for probably, I don't know how many years, for several years. I ended up investing a lot of my spare time in actually studying permaculture. Then eventually, when we went to South Africa, I ended up taking my PDC with Geoff Lawton. And I quite arrogantly thought, well, actually, I think I could teach this myself. So I ended up setting up the Permaculture Research Centre in Cape Town. And I ended up being really quite successful. I ended up having thousands of people come through my courses in a really short period of time. And from there, obviously, I'd got a bit of a name for myself. And I got people coming to ask me to do designs for them and different things. And, it all took off. And, it was real fun. I mean, I love it. I still love it to this day. Best when I was actually working properly in permaculture, was the best part of my working life so far. Unfortunately, back in the rat race again now, and we're trying to redevelop ourselves as permaculturists again. But permaculture doesn't pay the bills, unfortunately. So
not yet.
Not yet.
Not
We'd like to change that. We've got a few ideas.
It will. It will.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, it will.
Out of necessity, thank goodness,
So we've got a few ideas, which hopefully we'll talk about them today. And hopefully we can. My key is actually I actually want to inspire other people to get involved in permaculture. I think, permaculture. I mean, Mollison obviously did a great work. He got the ball rolling, but I kind of feel like, my experience of my courses, people would come on the courses. You tell them the ethics, and you could see them glow. This is what I want to do. They'd start shining. They'd want to hug each other. We're real people, and this is what life is all about. And then they'd leave my courses, go back to work, rejoin the rat race, back on foot on the pedal again, and they're just the same people they were prior to the course. Permaculture forgotten. And what I want to do is actually inspire people to actually stay involved. And I think there's some things we can actually do to do that, which again I hopefully we'll discuss today. So that's me, and that's where I am. And looking forward to a permaculture future. And I think we're about to hit a big change in the world right now, and I think people are going to be looking for new ideas.
Well, I can tell you without a doubt that is the case. People are looking for solutions right now. And just to give you a little bit of context, in the past roughly 3 months, we've had over 1,100 people come to our website, fill in a form asking to learn about growing food, leveraging permaculture. So that's just in the past 3 months. And that's with no real advertising, marketing budget behind it. That's word of mouth and us talking about it maybe on this show. But the momentum is coming and we're in the right place at the right time. So great opportunity for you to get back into permaculture, have it pay the bills and beyond. And I see we've had Gale join us. Welcome, Jim. Good to see you.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I am, it's been such an epic, 2 years, 15 years. And these days are going like time is an illusion right now. There's multiple things happening at the same time. I'll be in a meeting with a group of people on site, and then I'll be 5 minutes in a board meeting with somebody on the other side of the world where they want me to share how permaculture will change the world. And as you folks know, it's the solution to all the world's biggest problems, right? That's why they call it permanent culture. So I am so certain that our time has come. And I want to thank you for your history and all your passion and thoughts that you've put into it so far.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jim. Thanks for leading the charge with us, because when we were out in South Africa, I don't know if you've experienced this, Graham, but when we got there, so part of my background is also in marketing, graphic design, and that kind of thing. And, we got busy marketing our courses. And one of the things Pete developed was he split the PDC into 12 modules that you could do like on a rotating basis, and made it more affordable for people in Africa as well. And that wasn't met with a lot of people were, so the historical sort of permaculture movement was quite closed for a very long time, and sort of quite what would you say, cliquey, and I don't want to use very bad negative words, but we were vilified for marketing permaculture. It was seen as sort of like sacrilege. Don't do that, but it got the word of mouth out, and people, if people say, what is permaculture, or do you know what that is, they sort of glaze over. So we were like, well, it's nature-based solutions. You have to use words that they can relate to. But even just marketing your courses was seen as, you shouldn't be doing that. But times have changed. Let's go.
I had kickback against me, and it was almost like the way I was advertising was seen as being vulgar. It was they saw it as being anti permaculture. That's the way the system works. And I'm thinking, well, if that's I want to take the best from the system and use it in permaculture to actually get my voice heard. We perhaps it was vulgar, perhaps I was being over the top, but today I've still got the biggest permaculture voice on Facebook in South Africa. I've been away, I've been out of permaculture. It's not massive. It's not a massive, I don't have hundreds of thousands of people following me, but it's the biggest in South Africa, and it's because of my, if you like, vulgar technique to actually get it out there. But the thing is, at the time, I could work at it full time. I don't have that energy, and I'm working it, like say, in the rat race at the moment, so I can't put the same energy into it. So as soon as I can.
I am so excited that you're meeting with Graham and Matthew, because the Freedom Farm Academy is made for you and people like you all over the world, because we've layered in all the relevant profit centers and yield creation pieces and elements of the puzzle, and we've put it all into one thing. And I just got off the phone there's several people that are going to invest. We're going to raise billions and billions of dollars this year. We're going to get commitments for billions of dollars to compost the fiat and put it into the ground.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, so certainly, Germaine, I can
awesome.
agree
Folks,
with
I've
you.
got to run. I've got to meet with some other people, but I wanted to say hi. I love you.
Thanks for hopping in, Jim.
Cheers, mate.
Bye, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Big hug, everybody.
Take care, Jim.
I know.
So yeah, Germaine and Pete, I can agree. Based on my early experience in Australia, as I said, for me, the discovery of permaculture was pretty much just in the back end classifieds in some of the magazines that my parents had. It's kind of like taking a naughty magazine to the bathroom that you just kind of like read about permaculture and go, what is this stuff? And you can send $5 in an envelope to get more details, kind of thing. And so for me, all those different classified ads were like, okay, there's got to be something here. You could actually send off and get some free newsletters. This is back in the days before the internet. And I think, in a lot of cases, you're right. It was like confined to certain communities. In Australia, it was, more in the northeast of New South Wales, in the areas where, Geoff Lawton is right now, where Tagari, was located. And the community of Nimbin specifically was kind of like the hippie community in Australia. And it was largely within that community where permaculture, first, took a stronghold. And everybody looked at it as just being part of the hippie movement, and folks are just using it to grow marijuana or whatever, and it wasn't really taken seriously. And so then within the development of permaculture in Australia, obviously you've got different people like Bill Mollison himself, David Holmgren, Geoff Lawton now as well, who've continued to be very, very active in promoting permaculture. And I think it's now reached a level of maturity where any stigma that was attached to it from back in the early days has now disappeared. And people are now willing to accept that it's necessary to promote permaculture using all of the tools that we have available. But I still do encounter myself, people who question, it's like, well, why are you turning this into a business? Why are you turning it into
why do you want to make money?
Yeah, exactly. And even with the 1,000 odd people that were part of Geoff Lawton's online permaculture course that I did and that I interacted with on Facebook, even to this day, as people graduate, I get mixed opinions about whether it should be a business or not, and whether it should be something that's aimed at making money, or just whether you do it as charitable good works. And, frankly, there is an element of wanting to do good things, that drives me and motivates me. But just like you all, I'm looking at, okay, how do I make this, into something that is sufficient to feed my family? Having been a chemical engineer and had a great career and, earned some decent money as a result of that, I want to have permaculture be a vehicle for providing for my finances as I retire and as I continue my life on my own farm. And I don't think people quite necessarily understand the need for that. There are certain groups that do permaculture just specifically for charitable works or as a community group organization, and they attract funding from foundations, etc., in order to pay for what they do. And I commend those people for doing that, because I think the more the merrier when it comes to permaculture in every possible vein, whether it's through nonprofit organizations, community groups. You mentioned the homeschooling community. That's a big organization in itself, domestically here in the US and also in Australia, different, homeschooling groups, homesteading groups, etc. I think we need as many different groups as possible and organizations as possible in order to get the message out. And the one thing that I take from, listening to Geoff Lawton and Bill Mollison in their early videos of their courses that they presented was that they wanted as many people as possible to be teachers of permaculture, because they recognized that the more people who became teachers, the more people would, take a course, the more people would understand permaculture and then start applying it on their own properties. And so they said, go teach, as soon as you've got your certificate, go teach anywhere, everywhere.
I remember watching Mollison, and he actually said, go teach. You might not be any good at it, but just go teach anyway. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's the analogy of teaching a man to fish, right? So you can fish for him, or you can teach him to fish, or you can teach him to teach others to fish. Mm-hmm. And I think we're at that spot right now where that is a critical piece of this important puzzle. The other thing I want to touch on here, for anybody who thinks that value shouldn't come back to you for adding value, well, you're very misguided. That's all that Germaine, Pete, Graham, myself, Jim, it's what we're doing. We're adding value to the marketplace by teaching people about what's possible with permaculture and implementing those things. And in exchange for value, you get value back. Sometimes that value is in the form of a dollar bill. Sometimes it's in the form of a smile. Sometimes it's in the form of a exchange of barter, right? Value out, value back. So the more value you focus on adding to the marketplace, the more value you will get back. So I think let's forget what the people are saying about you shouldn't be earning money from this. And let's just go focus on adding value to the marketplace, and how that value comes back to us. Well, the marketplace will determine that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's this, if we once we get to the point where permaculture teachers, or even a permaculture design, we need to get to the point where that's considered as a respectable career, a respectable profession. And you are seeing universities now offering permaculture design as a degree course. And so with that in mind, if a doctor is earning, because he's gone and done a degree and he's getting value back from having put value in to study that, there's no reason why a permaculturist shouldn't be aligned with the same kind of thinking, and there was, for the longest time, it was considered a very hippie community, and we did feel that that's where permaculture as a movement, that whole demographic of society were not being spoken to in terms of just teaching this knowledge. Because as we know, it's not just about agriculture, it's also about a philosophy and a way of life. And so if you're only targeting sort of, the hippie communities or the tree huggers or those kinds of people, you're not really hitting the bigger demographic, which are the corporates, are our schools, which of course is my passion, is to try and open, permaculture schools for kids. I'm sure all of us have dreamt about that, but and it has to be taken seriously, and that means you need to be viewed as somebody who is, an academic. Let's face it, it's a design science at the end of the day. It's not just agriculture. It's not just growing things. That's why a lot of engineers are attracted to it, because of the design element of it, and also in the big systems thinking sort of aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually systems engineering.
Systems engineering.
I am a systems engineer in terms of real engineering, but it's system engineering where your base is actually nature. Rather than some machine, it's based on nature, and we're looking at the systems within nature and trying to interact with them. And one of my mentors said, if you can't describe something in less than 10 words, you don't actually understand what it is. Now, if you try to explain what permaculture is in less than 10 words, it's like, eesh, it's this massive topic that, you can draw from everything. So, I had to think about it hard. And what I came up with is permaculture is inserting human species back into nature with ethically bounded design. And that, to me, is that's the ultimate definition of what permaculture is. It's the fact that we're ethically bounded. If you fall outside of that ethically bounded, it's not permaculture. You can't call it permaculture. So we have to design to get ourselves to be a part of nature again. Civilization has taken us away from nature. It's not taking us to a better place. It's taking us to a different place. We need to get back on track again. And we can be civilized within a natural environment. We don't have to have this fraudulent concrete world to live in.
A 15-minute city, you say?
Yeah. Well, I want to, Graham, I want to go back to one of the things that you said about, it started within these hippie communities. Now, my experience, my first ever PDC I ever taught, I brought on a young girl with me. She was my, two of us were doing this PDC, teaching this PDC course together. It was the first one I ever did. And we discussed what we were going to do in the course. Obviously, we were going to just do the chapters of Mollison's manual. And she ended up doing the intro to the intro. The first thing she did was, hi, everybody take off your shoes. What I want you to do is we'll walk outside and we're going to go and say a prayer to Gaia. Now, that's great if you're that way inclined. But there are a lot of people who are not that way inclined. You know, we ended up going outside, holding hands in a ring and saying a prayer to the trees. You know, it was lovely, but we just as well sung a hymn, Morning is Broken or something. It puts people off. It puts the mainstream people who we want to get away from their TVs off, because they think this is a bunch of hippie tree hugging gardening. It isn't. It's the potential successful future for humanity. You know, we've got to. Although I love the hippies for the way they take on this subject, we've got to kind of shake that off as well to get the mainstream people involved, because all the time it's given these hippie air quotes around it. It's not going to be taken seriously.
I want to laugh though, because if you had to see photos of Pete at the time, he had the hippie shirt on. We were full on embracing. We did. He had a big beard and
I looked a bit like you, Graham.
In all fairness, and so I worked for 34 years as a chemical engineer, right? And so I've worked in oil refineries where I had to have short hair. I couldn't grow a beard because of the risk, to safety, and I would need to wear respirators for my work. And so for 34 years, I haven't been able to grow my hair the way that I would really like to. And so it's like once I was done and retired, I'm like, here's the beard, here's the hair.
I did my 22 years in the British military, and then I retired. So I got a full pension at 40, and then I just went right. Germaine didn't like it very much. Though, so
Graham, are you using permaculture on your hair and beard, or?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, back to your point, though, and we, try really hard. Like, so within our design teams and, within the, permaculture, communities that I operate within on Facebook, and, Geoff Lawton's team, again, the whole point about, spirituality and politics, we try really hard, to be neutral in both of those aspects. So tolerant of everybody's beliefs. I think that's the first most important point. And secondly, not to try to put one view in front of another as being more important and more powerful or more valuable. I think, Jim, at least, when I see all of his, different 2-minute videos each day, he'll acknowledge that, we're using nature, God, source, whatever you'd like to call it, as, the basis for why we have plants here on Earth that we can use and provide us with food. But we don't get into the depths of spirituality in any particular fashion. And within my design team and within the wider design team, we have so many different belief systems and belief structures. We've just all agreed that we're going to tolerate each other's beliefs, embrace each other's beliefs as being important to that person. And we all agree on one thing that's most important is the ability to teach permaculture, do good design work, and encourage all of the stewards of the land that we work with that, this is a good thing for improving how we grow food to be self-sufficient. And that works really well within our team.
It's although I appreciate that, and that is the best way to go forward.
It's for 3 hours though.
It's the taking it to, it's the public need to understand that, and they still think we are a bunch of hippie tree huggers. They don't. They're not.
Well, we need leadership. That's what it is. We need leadership. We need people to stand in their power around permaculture and guide the way. And whatever anybody else says doesn't matter, right? We're gonna take some arrows in the back at first because you're a pioneer. But that's what pioneers do, and they look forward to. And we're gonna gleefully take those, continue to push forward with the ethics that we know are right, build the future that we want to create, and the right people will come along. I don't need to convince anybody. I don't need to, because if I convince them, what do I spend my day doing? Reconvincing them that this was the right move. I want them to convince themselves. And the way that I do that is by leading, right? We show by example. Here's what we're doing. Come along with us or don't. That's up to you. You can go hungry when there's no food supply, or you can get curious, look for other ways to participate, and join us when you're ready.
Yeah, it's the principle of demonstration, which we found is so powerful, because when we first started out, we moved into a 4-bedroom Victorian, two-story in the middle of concrete suburbia. And in the back garden, we had these concrete slabs. So it was a very barren garden, just concrete slabs. And once we started getting into, the very first thing was urban agriculture. That's the first thing, because that's, zone 0, here we are. Let's do what we can with what we have where we are. So Pete went and pulled up the concrete slabs, and he created veg beds. And our neighbor behind us, he used to just sit on his back step, smoking all day, but he was watching what we were doing. His garden was just like a dust bowl. There was nothing going on in there. Anyway, once he dug up the beds and the veg was growing and it was fantastic and beautiful, one day we go out there and there he is in his garden and he's doing the same thing. He's now putting in his own beds. So Pete went and got seedlings and he handed him some over the wall, as if to say, there you go, buddy. We can all do this. It's so easy. But we didn't have to tell him, and it's just like, I sent you a clip, Matt, on the Dutch. Apparently there's a Dutch politician now. They want to do these food forests, and it's all based off this guy in Holland who had put in a food forest. I don't know if you saw that. It's just in the news recently.
No mention of permaculture in that whole video.
No, they didn't call it permaculture. But again, this goes to my point about the word permaculture. People it kind of just goes over their heads. Yeah. Whereas if you use words that are descriptive, so food forest or nature-based solutions, then it kind of permeates their consciousness. So yeah, Holland, this is what they're going to do there now. But the thing is, they're going to expropriate 3,000 farms or farmers, which is kicked off, as you know. But they're also saying they want to do these food forests. So, I mean, it's a tough one, because obviously we know that's a good idea. And it's just the public need to be educated. And it goes back to your point, Matt, about education. We just feel that's the quickest way to get this going. We
have to cross the chasm, right? Where they're in the early adopter phase. Now we're starting to move into getting the introduction into the masses, but we're still super early. That's where the demonstration centers are extremely important, and how we set those up across the earth. With Food Forest Abundance, our intentions are the Freedom Farm Academies, which are those physical demonstration locations where anybody can go and experience it and close the gap, right? When people think about growing food today, you're right. Their default program.
Nope. There you go.
Oh my gosh, did we lose Matt?
You're in charge.
Yeah. So with Matt, he was.
That's so weird. I got a FaceTime call and it kicked me out of StreamYard.
Here he is. You're back.
Gotta shut that off when we're doing live interviews.
You were saying, I thought it was because you were saying something too powerful.
Yeah. The demonstration locations with the Freedom Farm Academies, we've put those in place as a reason to close that gap, or as a way to close the gap, because the default program is the small backyard annual garden or the large industrial monoculture farm. And both of those fight nature at every turn. But we're not doing that. We're deciding to work with nature, right? Permaculture, permanent agriculture, work with the way nature has designed it and leverage the incredible power of what nature is. We'll never beat nature. So I don't know why we continue to try. Well, let's stop that. Stop being so thick-skulled. Take the lesson, we're not going to beat it, and start working with it, which is exactly what we're doing with permaculture. And then get people into these locations to experience it, make it real for them, right? Because we think in pictures, and when they think growing food, the pictures are what I already described. But if we can get them into a actual physical location to see it in action, the picture is now changed.
Yeah.
Right?
The
change in the picture will put them in a position where they get it and they take action. Yeah,
people see a farm as being plowed fields.
Yes.
That's their vision of a farm.
Yep.
And that again, that's the thing. These are the sorts of things that we need to change. you know.
And that's a common conversation I have, when going through these strategy sessions that we have with folks all over the world. I have to, verbally describe to them a different picture for, what permaculture looks like. I always give the example of an apple orchard. In this part of the world, we have lots of apple production, and you drive past the apple orchards, they're pristine. The grass is neatly mowed underneath the trees. They're separated by certain distances to allow, machinery, harvesters, etc., to travel through the fields. And when I talk about growing apples, in people's backyards as part of a conversation, they go, well, I don't have the room for that and all the other things that I want. And so that then leads into a natural conversation to say, put that picture in your mind aside of what an apple orchard looks like, and then imagine underneath the apple tree having strawberries or raspberries, different herbs, pollinator attracting species, etc. And then we have a conversation without mentioning permaculture. We have a conversation about how much production can take place in a much smaller space.
Yeah.
And then people start to think, oh, well, I can actually do this in my small backyard that I've got, where I might only have, a couple hundred square meters, a couple hundred square feet in order to, grow things. And now they're thinking, okay, I can do this. And so that's the conversation I always have. I give the example of the peach trees that I have in my own backyard. I don't space them based on what commercial agriculture says. I space them based on they fit and they grow and the soil takes care of them. And I've got 10 other different plants underneath them. And so for me, it's all about demonstrating those types of examples so people can understand that it's not necessarily about mimicking commercial agriculture. It's about mimicking nature.
Absolutely.
When I was growing up, I was in South Africa. Every household, pretty much, most people had fruit trees in their gardens. It was quite unusual that you would, if you went to visit someone, you wouldn't have some variety of fruit that was lying on the floor in the garden, and that it was commonplace. And it's quite shocking. And the supermarket model, which I always say is something we need to try and move away from, because it's not sustainable at all. But the minute they came in, people stopped growing fruit in their gardens in South Africa because they didn't have to anymore. You had whatever fruits you wanted all the time, so people just didn't bother. But yeah, I loved it. My childhood, we always had fruit on the ground, ripe, loads of it.
It was when we were in Cape Town. We did
Yeah.
a consultation for Cape Town City Council, and you tell the story.
Yeah, so we were just talking about some of the value add they could do for, because they have a high rate of unemployment and also loads of people living on the street, homeless people. So we said, well, why don't you replace a lot of your lined avenues? Let's put fruit trees in, and then we could have little micro enterprises where the guys could have, maybe one guy could have 5 fruit trees that he takes care of. He could have his little fruit stand, And they were like, no, it just creates too much mess. It creates mess and attracts vermin.
That's what they said, mess. Fruit is mess.
So it's that getting people over that mindset of, looking at food differently again. And we often speak about slow food. We love the slow food movement. And it's reconnecting with food again in a way that nourishes us and serves us in so many different ways, other than just this quick to the supermarket, wolf it down, and or throw out what's left over. And that in itself is another whole educational thing. I work part-time for the World Council for Health. And so the health industry is also, or a lot of people in the health industry are re-looking at what it is that keeps us healthy. And so we're also connecting with farmers now and growers. And so, you might want to consider engaging with health practitioners to partner with you at your demonstration sites.
We are.
The two go together, because
Yep.
as everybody's summing at the World Council for Health, we're looking for better ways of doing things going forward in all avenues of healthcare and food and nutrition.
We've had multiple chiropractors invest in Freedom Farm Academies already.
Yes. Yep. And naturopaths. Yeah.
And
Herbalists.
yeah.
I've got design work that I'm just about to do here, in Wisconsin with a person who's a natural healthcare practitioner, and wanting to be able to grow on her property all of the things that she uses in her practice, and then wants that to be a demonstration site for several other natural healthcare practitioners who likewise can't count on from one day to the next whether they can get access to all the different medicinals that they would like to use. And so that's another very important aspect of of what we do, is helping people to incorporate all of that within a holistic design that's not just fruit and veg, but all the herbals and medicinals.
You have a lot of people operating inside the medical system, or also known as the sickness system, who are starting to have their foundation rocked, where what they believed was true is shattering, and they're asking better questions, which is leading them to discover, oh, I actually can help people truly heal by doing things differently. And because of that, they're now looking for other solutions, meaning they're finding companies like ours. They'll be hunting people like you down as well, Pete and Germaine, and they're trying to find ways that they can unify with people who are doing good, get them in a position where they can actually start discovering what's truly possible when it comes to healing, and how that old statement of let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food, how true it actually is.
Yes.
But again, we have the issue of the associations, the people that own the journals, the people that fund, lobby the governments, etc., that are going to be, playing blocker for a little while still. But as the population continues to become aware of the negligence, the corruption, the fraud, the flat outright lies, they will make changes, because their eyes are telling them the truth, right? They're seeing the problems, and eventually you can't unsee it anymore. You have to go with your gut instinct and make a pivot. And we're here to welcome them, and also hopefully inspire them before they even need to be welcomed by us, but inspire them to start making that change, and then put them on the path to getting that solution out there to their clientele or to their patients, if you're speaking in medical terms.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of allopathic doctors actually rethinking what it is that they were trained to do. And they're realizing that actually all this time, I haven't been healing somebody. All I've been doing is maintaining their, how bad their symptoms are. And I'm speaking to many, many doctors who are actually now starting to transition into naturopathic medicine or, functional medicine, but re-looking at how they treat or partner with their patients rather than dictate to them. So it's more of a proper partnership, as in treating the whole being, and not just having a 15-minute consult and rushing through that whole process, but going back to your traditional family doctor style of doing things. And I think the permaculture world, this is another opportunity for permaculturists, because we can partner with these practitioners and provide, as I say, the nutritional element to them, because you are going to see a dividing in the medical system whereby you're going to have different offerings of healthcare, and they will be, the public will just start gravitating that way, because they're going to see those people, the people who go there are healthy and well. And so clearly something there is working. And again, that goes back to the principle of demonstration. You don't have to convince anybody. All you got to do is use your eyes, right? So these things will just naturally evolve that way. And so, but it's just something for us to think about in permaculture. Who else will we be partnering with, in terms of providing these services to people out there.
So Pete, for yourself, as a 22-year veteran of the military and being a weapons engineer, and your experience there, I want to know, like, what did that part teach you about what you're now doing today, and how that experience really positioned you?
I mean, in terms of permaculture, it would probably be the last chapter as the community side, because I mean, you don't think, I mean, most people don't think, I mean, I used to be on board a ship with maybe a Type 42 destroyer, 150 people on board that ship. We all had our specialist roles, and we all together, we were a team. The structure of that community was obviously a military structure, totally alien to an eco community, but it was still a community. We all still had to get on. Now, what I found in actually looking back at my career when I went into the communities is exactly the same structures that we set up within the military, so that we ran smoothly as a cooperative group, were exactly the same structures that you actually need to set up in in an eco community. I don't like the term eco community, but it better expresses, easily expresses what it is. Eco is just another buzzword to sell something to people. But so you have to have your terms of reference for the whole group. Those terms of reference have to be written down, because if they're not written down, people forget them and then they make up their own in their head. We had our terms of reference effectively with our ship standing orders, and across the structures, all the way through the structures, it was exactly the same. So when I actually went into the communities, it was very easy for me to say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to set things up, and this is now how we need to run things. And now we actually occasionally run how to set up a community type courses to actually explain to people what the key things you are out there that you actually need to do. And one of the things that actually gets people to kind of see the wheat from the chaff is, we say to the people, what you've got to do is, the first time you as a group get together, is you need to organize something like a beach clean. But you don't organize it on a nice sunny day when the weather's nice. You get a really miserable rainy day, and then you all go down there on the beach and do a beach clean on this really horrible day, and you'll very, very quickly see the personality types within the group. And then you'll find out whether you can truly have community with this group of people, because you see the worst when they're cold, miserable and wet. You'll see whether you can actually be in a community with this person. And some people just don't like that idea. I'm not going to go do that. Well, you think, well, okay, then I don't want to be in community with you.
Yeah.
If you can't do something that's a little bit horrible, then I don't want it, because communities aren't always going to get on. So you have to have this kind of system to sort the wheat from the chaff.
It's forcing, like in nature, you need a bit of a forcing element or challenging. When in nature, when a plant's challenged, you discover where its weaknesses are, etc. So it's the same with human beings. When we were involved with community setup in the beginning, it's always kumbaya. Everyone puts down their vision of the utopia that they want, and then we all get stuck in, and we're trying to build our utopia. But within 6 weeks, you start seeing people's challenges coming out, their true selves, and everyone's settled in, and communities tend to not sort out their governance structure, how they're going to sort out conflict resolution. These are all the things we learned actually building these communities, and we learned what we don't want in community. And that's when you're setting a community, first question you need to tell people is, first figure out what you don't want. Put that down on paper so everyone knows what it is that you do not want in the community. Get that out of the way first off, before you go about putting in your veg beds and stuff, because You'll be putting in those veg beds, and all of a sudden someone says, well, I don't want to do X, Y, Z. And then you're like, oh, well, why didn't you say that in the beginning? You know, we've just spent 20 grand setting this thing up.
Well, we joined a community in the Dordogne in France. And at this first meeting, I wasn't actually there. Germaine was there. And there's a guy who turned up and he said, we cannot have any plastic at all in this whole community. No plastic, zero. You know, zero tolerance. It was, you know, and when again.
Yeah, but the thing was, we then said, okay, but then that laptop you're typing on, that means you're on your laptop, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he was like, well, no, I need this for work. Like, yeah, but there's plastic in that. So steps, baby steps, you know, we'll replace that with hemp plastic one day. But right now, we've still got to use some of it.
It's almost the fourth ethic of permaculture. You know, we obviously have the three, but the fourth ethic is the we have to transition from one place to another place. So it's recognizing, creating that roadmap, and then walking your roadmap so that you can go from the civilized world that we live in to the permaculture world that we want to get to. To me, that's the fourth ethic. It's making that journey. It's making the transition and deciding that you're going to take that path.
That's a good one, and I think that's emblematic of, you know, the journey that, you know, we have to take in so many different aspects of what we do in permaculture. A journey that's, you know, deciding to start with, you know, the conventional methods of agriculture and move away from that. And, you know, it's a journey. It's not something where you can just flip a switch and, you know, expect everything to be perfect. In talking with people, you know, they have a mindset of, okay, how am I going to handle the bugs? And, you know, how am I going to handle the weeds? You know, because they've got a conventional mindset that those things are bad. That's the first part. And that they have to be dealt with. That's the second part. And then a thirst for knowledge about how they're going to use some kind of different alternative to deal with those problems the same way that they always did. But maybe it's greener and more environmentally friendly than what we used to use. And instead, I try to challenge people that it's actually a paradigm shift that they have to make, that those things aren't bad. Encourage them. Let them come into your property. Let nature balance them out. And then, you know, you have a balanced ecosystem where you didn't before. And so the need for all those different things starts to disappear.
Yeah. Well, I teach, I'm actually teaching one on Sunday this week, but I teach a square foot gardening course because it brings the normies in. And then I just bombard them with permaculture. They're on the course just learning, you know, square foot gardening. Just a nice way to get them in, easy gardening techniques. But then obviously this is permaculture. These are ethics. This is what we need to do. Oh, we need to compost. This is how you compost. You know, tell them all those things. This is a worm farm. This is how you make composting tea. You know, stick all the other stuff on. They were expecting just to learn this grid gardening technique, but then they get all these extras thrown in for free.
Stealth permaculture.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're muted, Matt.
Yeah. This has been an awesome show today, and I really thank you both for joining us. Before we sign off here, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find you, where they can connect with you via social media, and if you have any offerings, coaching or courses or anything like that coming up, share those as well.
So we're in transition at the moment. We're not sure where we're going to end up, or you know, we think we might move. So we haven't really set anything up at the moment. The pandemic threw our plans up in the air.
The pandemic threw your plans up in the air, eh?
Yeah, for sure. But you can visit our website, which is on the screen. I see there, championsofpermaculture.com. And our Facebook page, which is also Champions of Permaculture. Anything that we're going to be doing will show up pretty much on the Facebook page. Okay. We're a little bit slack on the socials, aren't we? But we want to set up Fractal Farms, which is basically community-owned market gardens, as a way of taking back sovereignty of your food systems and having communities own a fraction of a market garden as kind of the first step. And it will be surrounded by a food forest and permaculture orchard, that kind of thing. A bit like a demonstration site, as you were saying, Matt. But the first step being the market garden, the ones that we put in Cape Town.
because it's a conventional type market garden, it's also far more sellable to the public. They don't really understand, what a permaculture farm is, and that's also is it
Fractal Farms.
Fractal Farms.
Yeah,
Fractal Farms. It's got a nice little movie that we've made in there that actually explains what Fractal Farms is all about. And that's the business now I want to get into. I mean, when I was in South Africa, I installed quite a lot of market gardens. And now I think, it creates food security for communities. If every single community had 5 market gardens placed around them, we've got close food. And it's, hopefully grown organic, or actually I like to call it permaganic rather than organic. It's a much better way. I mean, it doesn't have all the silly regulations that organic has on top of it. And it's not just organic, it's ethical.
There you go.
Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll definitely have to have you back on the show. Lots of wisdom to share. Great conversation. Graham, thank you for joining us as well. Germaine, Pete from Canada with love. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you actually make it across the water, get you into the United States or Canada, and connect in person.
We'll buy a dinghy and we'll be on our way.
Well, you can get into Canada, so you can start here, and then maybe we can have you swim across the St. Lawrence or something like that.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hey, everybody, you guys are welcome to sign off. I'll play an ad or two, and then we'll end the live show. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hope everybody enjoyed the live show today. We're just going to play a couple ads and then send you on your way.
At Weston A. Price Foundation, we're dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense, farm-fresh foods to the human diet. We look to ancient food and health practices for clues on how to live our healthiest, most vibrant lives today. Join the mission and check out our exclusive membership details at westonaprice.org. As a member, you'll receive our quarterly journal on wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts, our annual shopping guide, monthly access to private Q&A sessions with experts, consultations on state laws, regulations, and policies, including food freedom legislation, and so much more. Weston A. Price Foundation. Let's return to wise, traditional foods.
Hey, Jim Gale Show listeners, again, thank you for tuning in. We love having you here. We're so honored. And, I want to give you a little bit of exciting news. We've decided to offer complimentary food forest strategy sessions with a certified permaculture designer. These are 30-minute sessions where you get to sit down with someone who can really help you with a strategy for your own property. It's a great chance for you to ask some questions and learn and just really to dig into what's possible. This is 30 minutes with someone who's certified, knows all about permaculture and what's possible using this incredible science and working with nature. So head over to foodforestabundance.com and schedule your 30-minute food forest strategy session today. Again, that's foodforestabundance.com. And remember, get yourself registered for that 30-minute strategy session. And for doing so, we're going to give you $100 coupon as well. So get over there, have some fun, learn about what's possible for you and your own property, and let's get growing some food. Thanks again for tuning in to the Jim Gale Show.